Hello, this is Laverne Gill, and I'm with Reston's African American Legacy Program. And today we have a special guest, a good friend, and an excellent photographer, Augie Ogburn. And my co-host is Eulene Bevins. And we're going to, last week, a couple of weeks ago, we all lamented the fact that Muhammad Ali passed into eternity. And I thought about you as soon as that happened because I knew that you probably had some photographs of Muhammad Ali. So Augie, tell me about the kinds of photographs that you do and what you've done during your career.
Well, fortunately, I have been blessed with employment of enjoyment. And the reason I say that is that I initially started taking pictures in the political scene in D.C. I was Walter Washington's first campaign photographer, and he was like the first elected mayor for Washington since Reconstruction. And after that, two fellows I went to college with ended up being the head of the Democratic National Committee.
Ooh.
So the next thing I found myself Jimmy Carter's campaign photographer. But political photography was fun, but it wasn't as much fun as working for the record companies. And because BET was in Washington, I got a lot of work with a lot of entertainers that came to Washington. So my main job in the beginning was shooting entertainers. And when I say that, it was sort of like the Sade, Edward Hawkins, gospel, Nona Hendrix, LaBelle, Patti LaBelle, just...
Did you get an early Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson when he had the afro, and I also had Michael Jackson with the new look, And I have just been blessed to wake up every day because I had a job now. I had jobs where I hated to wake up, So this was the thing where I said, you're going to work with Whitney Houston tomorrow. And I would, when you start working with people that you like, and now when I started working with the Temptations, I partied with the Temptations. I mean, growing up in college, Girls All Right with me, and then Smokey Robinson. When you're working with these are people
So
who
now,
I grew up.
when was this that you started doing this? Because you must have some vintage pictures.
Well, no, I started in the 70s, early 70s.
Well, that was also kind of a vintage time for the music.
Well, that's when music was.
When did you get the boxes? You got...
Well, what happened with the boxes was...
well, let's ask who all these people are.
We have Michael Spinks, Jersey Joe Walcott, Smokin' Joe, Muhammad Ali, and Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, Smokin' Joe was the big fight with him and Ali. They fought 3 times. And Michael Spinks, I think he beat a heavyweight champion. That's how he became a heavyweight champion.
And it didn't last very long, did it?
No, it didn't last long at all. But he was a good, not heavyweight, but middleweight, whatever.
Now, what was this occasion?
This particular occasion was Sugar Ray Leonard was having a big affair the following night. So I was good friends with Marion Barry's wife, Cora Mastersberry, and she was the boxing commissioner at the time.
Oh, yes.
And she sort of hooked up this event since the boxers was coming in town for the Joe Louis to go to Arlington Cemetery. And it was a big program because Joe Louis's son was there. His last name was Burroughs. Conyers was at this event. And of course, a couple of other boxers that are on in the pictures, but they wasn't the heavyweights.
Well, now you used to do a little bit of journalistic photography for a crazy newspaper called the National Chronicle.
Right.
Now, did you do a picture of Cora Masters for my front page?
We had her at a boxing gym.
Yes,
and she was by the heavy bag. Cora was there. And matter of fact, one of the things that Cora also, when I first came back to D.C., she had hooked me up with a fellowship that I went to graduate school. So I'm sort of indebted to her. And then her being a boxing commissioner, me liking boxing.
Yeah.
It's a brutal thing when you think about it, but
yeah,
it's kind of entertainment,
Do we have
some more pictures?
Any more pictures
Well,
from?
there's some other pictures that they might have in the.
Because you mentioned Rosie Parks.
Okay, and also, my main money came from the record companies. And
Now,
in
how does that
between
work? They call
Well,
you,
they would call me, and, say you're going to be with Whitney Houston tomorrow,
or Ashford and Simpson.
Ashford and Simpson. Now, Ashford, Ashford just passed away not too long ago.
Yeah.
And working with them, this particular picture I like because it's purple,
Yeah.
and Prince had left. and
Purple
Rain had left
Oh,
us
I
recently.
love that song.
But, I'm having a problem with so many entertainers dying of ODs and just dying young, period.
Yeah.
We lost Prince, Whitney, Michael,
yeah.
Gerald Levert. I mean, I could go on. I have
Yeah.
a book that I'm putting together. It's called sort of like the Book of the Dead.
Oh, yes. Keep that one.
But I really think that so many people, especially artists, entertainers, have been dying of this drug thing that it seems like we should now begin to start counseling and at least informing these when they're coming up, because what's happening, they're young and they get a lot of money, and after you get your pet peeves out of the way, then what are you going to do next? But I loved Ashford and Simpson.
Now,
Plus, they still real good entertainers.
do you have some Prince pictures?
Well, I had an ego trip with Prince. They gave me a pass that I could shoot the first 2 shows, and then they said, well, they kept bugging me. Well, just don't do this. And then they said, well, you only can shoot 2 shows. Now, Prince is great, and I love him. And he's a great entertainer, but so am I. And the only reason I say that is because I studied under the historian Chancellor Williams. And the reason I'm saying Chancellor Williams was the historian that really told our story that was outside of just being from slavery. And they sort of went into ancient history and was talking about how in Africa at the time that they developed medicine and astrology, they built the pyramids, things that they really can't even understand today. So once I got to learn a little bit more about my history other than we had been taught, then I felt so much stronger, because I think history empowered me, and I think history empowers anybody once they get to know it.
Well, you didn't just study under Chancellor. You were actually a part of his life.
Well, he was blind, and because I was a freelance photographer, I wasn't on no schedule or 9 to 5 kind of thing. So he asked me. Well, I read his book, and the book just blew my mind. And I also was blessed to go to Egypt. So when I came back from Egypt, I heard a friend of mine interviewing Chancellor on the radio, the WHUR, the Howard University station. So I knew the brother that was interviewing him, and I called him right away, like, where's Chancellor? How did you know him? Where can I reach him? So Chancellor didn't live that far from where I lived. He lived on 16th Street at the Woodland. So I got to meet him, and he asked me would I work a couple of hours with him a week, and of course, ended up being more than that. I ended up traveling with him because his book was popular in academia.
And the name of his book was
The Destruction of Black Civilization.
Oh.
And then, it was deep. Now, I'm with Chancellor one day, I had to put outfits together. He was blind, so he didn't really know what I would be wearing, but it'd be like a plaid shirt with a bow tie, would always had a blazer. And then, the next day I'm with Gerald Levert and, a P-Funk. And then I'm wearing leather pants with silk shirts and scarves. And
so you're
so in other words, I think Chancellor sort of kept me grounded.
But
to be honest.
Ray Charles, you had to wear a tuxedo, right?
Oh, well, yeah, those guys. Well, I worked for NABOB, Nationally Black-Owned Broadcasters, and that was a black tie event.
Okay.
And I worked for them 24 years, and that was done by the guys that came out of New York that had the Apollo, Percy Sutton and his son Pierre Sutton. But again, all of it was employment of enjoyment. And because of working for NABOB, I also got a chance to shoot a lot of politicians. I got a chance to shoot Betty Shabazz, Coretta Scott King. And,
Do you know the first subscription I had to my newspaper was from Betty Shabazz? I still have the check.
Really?
It's $25.
Wow.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, she was, her husband was the bomb. Well, that's when I learned that, good men has to have a good woman. And Mrs. Coretta Scott King and Mr. Shabazz, they were backbones to these brothers, and they needed them because the brothers was on the front line, and again, I just can say I've been blessed to have that experience.
Now, are some of your photographs in the Library of Congress?
Yeah, recently, the Library of Congress have 47 of my pictures, and the only pictures that they wanted was civil rights. So that's when they got the Mandela, Desmond Tutu, Dorothy Height. Also had Ron Brown, you know, when he was young, and
Yeah.
Green, one of the 9, Little Rock 9, you know. And these guys were young, you know, and I was kind of jealous of Ron Brown because he was young, but they was worshiping him like he was. I didn't know that his father owned the Teresa Hotel in Harlem, and when Castro came to stayed at the Teresa Hotel, he had chickens and stuff running around the rooms and stuff.
Why did they have
Do you have
chickens in
any
the room?
pictures
No,
of
because
Castro?
Castro was, I didn't get no pictures of Castro. I just started taking pictures in the early 70s.
Okay.
But I did start with Earth, Wind, and Fire. It was the first group that I
Well,
got
tell
to
me
know.
about the chickens and the.
Oh no, but Castro, you know, America wanted to sort of off him in a way. You know, he was, you know, Cuba wasn't accepted like they are now. You know, we had all kind of blockades against them and stuff. So when he came, he didn't want to trust anybody.
So he brought his own
feed it.
So he
chicken.
brought his own cooks and had the chickens running around the hotel. You know.
Now that's the picture you should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You have always been involved in just about everything that's been happening
Well,
in the
you,
community.
Vern, you remember the DC Black Repertory Company that was started
I
by
named
Robert
the
Hood?
DC Black Repertory
Okay.
Company.
Really? I remember
Yes,
that.
I gave it its name.
Well, and so I ended up being a sound man at the DC Black. Matter of fact, we just had a reunion with some of the brothers.
Is that so?
Came to town. One of the guys that started the rep with the Hooks was a guy named Eric Hughes, and he lives in Denver now. So whenever he comes to the East Coast, matter of fact, he's the great grandson of Booker T. Washington. Whenever it might be the great grandson.
Yeah.
Get the greats up mixed up. But he came to town recently. So when he comes to town, a lot of the people from the DC Black Rep from Philly and Jersey, we all get together. We just was together last Sunday, last Monday, matter of fact, and it was a nice reunion. You know. talking about
Well,
that.
do you think that your exhibits would work well in a place like Reston?
I don't see why I wouldn't, because you know, it's a cross section of a variety of pictures that I would be using. Like I say, the historical stuff I think is good for every American, and entertainers. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be. You know, I got Dustin Hoffman when he was doing. What was that? The movie that the Watergate movie. You know, I was walking down the 14th Street with my camera, and they were in the park. You know, doing the Watergate movie, and he was there talking to some fans. I said, "Oh, Dustin Hoffman is cool." You know, and I have some nice shots of him. So I mean, it's a cross section of pictures altogether. I mean, certain people like Sade and Michael Jackson and even a sister Janet Jackson, they're like crossovers. You know, they're like, and you know, my last gig, I have to say, is when I realized it was time to give up the music thing, was Little Kim.
Little Kim.
And
Okay.
Little Kim came with a couple of girls, and she was riding one like a horse. I'm saying, oh man. You know.
This is a community show.
Yeah.
But, well, to make a long story short, the community that she was involved with knew the words to all her songs and stuff.
Okay.
So that's when I said it's time to move on, Augie.
Have you ever had any of your pictures displayed in the museums in Washington?
In Washington,
Because I visit those all the time.
well, basically, my exhibits in Washington was really at the Parish Gallery.
Okay.
Parish had a gallery in Georgetown, and well, they're in the Library of Congress. So I mean, I don't think you can top that too much. And a lot of people have to correct them. They always say the Smithsonian, but no, it's the Library
It's
of
only,
Congress.
yeah.
And also because I did travel with Chancellor Williams, they informed me the new museum that's opening up in September said that Chancellor's papers would be better if they went to the Library of Congress.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you going to be there for the opening?
Oh, definitely, I'm gonna be there for the opening. But I sort of got on board a little bit too late because I was gonna, I'm gonna donate them a 13-picture box set of Chancellor with different people like Yusuf Ben Jochannan, they called him Dr. Ben. Van Sertima, he wrote They Came Before
Oh, yeah.
Columbus. And John Henry Clark, he also was, these guys taught in New York, went to college. And Chancellor, whenever Chancellor traveled, sometimes they all would be at the same type of symposium or, you know, same type of, on the dais together, you know, telling, teaching history, I guess.
Well, you know, that's history in and of itself because not many people know about Chancellor Williams except people who are your age and my age.
Yeah,
and,
right. And well, you
maybe
know,
some that
there's a
came-
problem that's brewing right now that I'm sort of getting worried about. I don't think Black history is really being celebrated as much as it used to be. And one day I was at a newspaper conference. Well, I guess it was the black newspaper, the newspaper that was started by Informer. They were having a conference in Washington. And one of the speakers was saying that the younger people don't want to hear about slavery and all that stuff now.
No, they
Well, that's
don't.
true.
And my question was to him was, well, how are they going to know the sacrifices that were made? This is a community show, right? Okay, where people could sit in the restaurants. They could, you know, their butts in the restaurants instead of, you know, what I would say ordinarily. So I get angry about that. You know, because there were so many sacrifices that was made so people could do the things that they're doing. I mean, even in Washington, you couldn't even try on clothes at certain department stores.
But you have given us pictorial history that it's hard to get rid of. So when people see some of these pictures like that one, they might have to ask the question, what is that about? When did that happen? Why did it happen? And so your pictures will go down as a part of that legacy, whether you are here or not, or whether I teach it or you teach it.
Well, I try to have I'm pretty well organized. If eventually, when I do leave, whoever comes behind me, daughter or family, they can, you know, because a lot of times, unfortunately, some photographers don't really have their stuff organized, and when they leave, nobody really has the time to be getting their stuff in order. You know.
Yeah, I think about who's the guy who used to shoot pictures on 14th Street all the
What are
time?
you talking about? Courtney.
Courtney.
Yeah, he used to walk around with a camera around his neck.
He walked around
Well,
with
he's one of them I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then you had Cabell. See, Courtney Cabell and the little short guy that shot for Jet. I think of his name in a minute, but he shot for Jet and Ebony. You know, they're like, you know, their collections, you know, I don't know where their collections are really. But I know they had White House credentials, so I mean, they shot stuff in the White House. One of my good friends, Milton Williams, you know, he shot a picture with the Reagan and Sadat. You know, I mean, these are historical moments. You know, and I just think that knowing your history empowers you. You know? So you know, I got pictures of Rosa Parks. You know, well, no, we had Ashford and Simpson. Who came in? Oh, B.B. King.
B.B. King.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now B.B. King blues was known. I believe blues might have been known more of a crossover than in our community. You know?
That's true.
You know,
That's
so
true.
Blues clubs and stuff. You know?
And the young people now love blues, and we're
Right.
kind of like moving
With
on to
blues.
another
Right,
level.
right.
We had a time when we were loving blues.
Yeah, and so when I think of Chancellor, one of my great heroes is Nelson Mandela. And I really wish I had gotten to South Africa, but I never did. Fortunately, I did get to Ghana.
But
I wish I had gone to South Africa while he was alive because
well, where did you shoot a picture of Mandela?
he was
when
at a
you
hotel.
here?
Believe it or not, one of my neighbors was sort of like, I guess, a guard or a security guard at the hotel, and he came and said that, you know, Nelson Mandela's at the hotel now. I said, what? You know, I grabbed my pack and I ran over with him, and so we're backstage. And of course, and the Secret Service is coming like, what are y'all doing back here? Well, he wants to shoot Nelson Mandela. Well, he should be over there. You know? So then they put me out front, and believe it or not, that was one of my greatest moments because he's one of my heroes.
Oh,
I never got a chance to shoot Martin Luther King or Malcolm X because I didn't start taking pictures until the 70s. You know.
Did you get a chance to shoot Obama?
Well, I was sick during the Obama time,
Yeah.
Okay.
but I hope to eventually get him. I really rather shoot.
His wife.
Right.
His
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like her. You know, I like her. Yeah, she's nice. No, but Obama would be great to have. But I got Bush. You know,
Yeah.
no, the father Bush, not the other Bush.
Okay.
The father, and I also I was Jimmy Carter's campaign photographer, so I got him. So I did get a couple of presidents. You know, but the political thing, you know, it's not like the music thing. Believe me.
I like collecting their Christmas cards, and I got.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because.
How did you get started in photography?
Well, photography discovered me. I didn't discover photography. And everything came kind of free. My sister had given me a camera. I had just left New York. I had a young daughter that I was leaving behind. So, and she felt sorry for me. I was just gotten divorced. And I went out to California. The weather was beautiful, so you're taking pictures, they come out great. And when I came back to DC, a friend of mine started a summer program at RLA, Redevelopment Land Agency, and the area was North Capitol, Thurston Quarter, Tyler House, and they were having a summer program for the kids. And I was like 2 days ahead of them in teaching them photography. I got the book out 2 days ahead of them, and I'm going to teach them photography. But I really fell in love with it. And what happened, and when I knew I was in love with it, you know, in the early 70s, the television went off at 12 o'clock in this area, you know. So I would go into when first time I went into the darkroom ever to develop pictures and stuff, I went in like 5 o'clock. When I came out, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. Everybody was sleeping, you know what I'm saying? Like, wow, I must really like this stuff. But then it was like a one-man show. Sometimes you could have a project with several people, and if one person mess up, they could mess up the whole project. But here you go out and take the picture, you come home and develop the film, then you blow up the picture, you dry mount it and stick Jesse Jackson on your wall. You know? And that's why I like pictures like Nelson Mandela, and one of my other favorite pictures is Rosa Parks. I think what she stood for, and you know, she wasn't the first one to sit on a bus, but hers was more planned and organized. And just a strong woman, and she worked for Conyers. So, Vern, you know your colleague George Wilson worked on Capitol Hill, and so whenever she came to town, I was running up there to get her autograph, and you know, I was taking some pictures of her, and I'm saying, I don't want to bother you, and she's saying, well, you still, you know, she could be kind of sassy if she wanted to, but you're still taking pictures, you know. But I fell in love with Rosa Parks. And, you know, and just her picture on my wall inspires me and motivates me. And that's what I think pictures should do to people. You know?
Yeah. Well, when you get these really good shots, is that when you have the most, you know it. You know when you get a good
See, when
shot.
you're beginning, you're developing film, you know. But after a while, you begin to know, man, that's a great shot I got. Because I have a lot of stuff on Muhammad Ali. Matter of fact, when I first started taking pictures, Muhammad Ali was having a fight in the Capitol Center, Washington area. And he was at this local hotel, and I went, he came down, I was having breakfast, and I was too nervous then. I was just starting out. I wasn't aggressive. So I took a picture of him sitting down by himself, and it's a picture that really went buck wild on Facebook because, you know, he's always doing different things, clowning around, but this one he was very subdued. And since he had passed away, so many people really liked that picture. And I had just started out, so it really wasn't the best lighting or anything. But,
Is it still on Facebook?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
You know, take a look on Augie's page.
Okay.
And it's him sitting at a rest, you know, at a table really by himself. But he did have young women, you know, there, you know, managers and, you know, sparring partners. But this particular time, he was just, you know, by himself. But he did have a crew with him.
So how did the transition from film to digital affect you?
Well, in a way, the quality is not as good as film. But digital has gotten very good. That now they're making motion pictures with digital. And nowadays, you could have a digital camera that shoots video, and that's what they shoot videos with now, you know. And with your regular 35mm camera, you just get a memory stick that holds a lot of memory, and they shooting video now. I'm being interviewed by a couple of cats that want to do a documentary on me, and that's what they're using.
So do you think that the value of the printed picture, the ones that you develop, do you think that has been enhanced because it's an older technique?
I think the older technique is probably more valuable than the new technique because what you're doing now, this is the old technique. The new technique is what they call it G-clays, which means little dots, which is similar to printing. You know, so the G-clay can be considered archival if you're using certain inks and certain papers, and you know, for longevity, basically. Because now, the printer that I have at home, I didn't know has dyes. And the dyes are good for 28 to 29 years. But if you had a pigment printer, which is much more expensive, that's more archival, the pigment. But even though I have a dye, you can spray it with something to protect it.
Preserve it.
So that gives it the archival.
If we wanted to go to the Library of Congress, how would we ask for your photos?
I guess you just have to say it's digitized. I just got a letter saying how stuff has been digitized. And Also, I became a history maker. I think, was that the letter that they sent me? That's been digitized. That's in the Library of Congress too now. Because history makers was something separate. But now they came and they interviewed me for 6 hours. And those interviews now are in the Library of Congress. You know,
Okay, so History Maker, is that a PBS thing?
No, that's an organization that has been started to document the history of certain people, you know, and they call them history makers. And Robert Hooks is a history maker. You know, the Baker twins are history makers, and you know, you find a lot of people, you know, are history makers that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people in the community, just like, you know, you're here, and my man was here with the church, and you know, there's a lot of people in the community that don't get acknowledged. You know, and but the history makers sort of like. Deal with people that aren't, you know, because when you go to the NAACP awards and BET, well, you know, the same people are getting awards all the time. You know, the ones that are on television, the actors and movie stars and stuff.
Well, it is so good to have you here in Reston. We have been friends for many, many years. And I enjoyed having you along with us when we went to Africa. And we went to the W.E.B. Du Bois tomb.
Really?
Yeah.
And did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, you sure did.
In the refugee
I really
camp.
appreciate going to W.E.B. Du Bois because Leo Hansberry was Chancellor's mentor at Howard, and W.E.B. Du Bois was Leo Hansberry's mentor. And you know, Chancellor was my mentor, so now I'm at the full circle.
Augie, it's so good to have you here. And
Loving it.
this has been wonderful.
It
What you
certainly
think?
has been. I've learned a lot from you.
Really?
This is Reston's African American Legacy Program. I'm Laverne Gill. Until next time.